Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Keep in touch with the unfolding of world history at Tarpley.net. Tarpley.net, some new material up there this past week. We're soon going to have the tape of audio tape of the speech I gave on Capitol Hill in front of the U.S. Congress, in front of the building, on the 23rd of October, a summary of the political situation, why Obama is blackmailed, why Barkey must be dumped. And, of course, he's celebrating over there in Afghanistan right now. Butcher Barkey, the warmonger. Obama's policies, endless war in Afghanistan, war in Pakistan, occupation of Iraq goes on forever, union busting, UAW teachers, tax cuts for the rich. He's about to, he's morphing into Bush before your eyes. Anyway, the term auction facility, TAF, one of those several, and we'll go through the entire list, the special circumstances, special and exigent circumstances lending that was done by the Federal Reserve. And the idea of this, of course, is that they would lend to anybody. There was no limit. Could be a foreign bank, could be an industrial company, could be a hedge fund, could be anybody, could be a syndicate of gangsters, which is what some of these hedge funds are. And the underlying point of this is, as you listen to this, imagine what we could do with that money as national credit for national infrastructure on our way to 30 million jobs. We're talking about $3.3 trillion, 3,300 billion, or in other words, 3.3 trillion of Federal Reserve credit. Now, for 3.3 trillion, you could buy a recovery in grand style, and I'll tell you exactly what to do. You know the litany, the 100 reactors, the 100,000 miles of maglev rail, the 1,000 hospitals, rebuild the interstate highway system, and rebuild the water systems, canals, sewage disposal, water treatment plants of the United States. You could basically do, I think, most of that for 3.3 trillion, but instead, here's who got the money to bail out bankrupt derivatives, toxic assets, kited securities of this type. Bank of America, $212 billion. Barclays Bank of London, as a reward for the stab in the back, they took over the carcass of Lehman, of course, after it had gone bankrupt, after the panic had been unleashed. Barclays Bank, $232 billion. Bank of Scotland, I think they mean by this Royal Bank of Scotland, once the largest corporation in the world, in terms of market cap, I believe, but bankrupt. $181 billion of U.S. national credit creation to keep this rotting entity of derivatives and speculation. Wells Fargo, $154 billion. They're the ones who took over the bankrupt carcass of Merrill Lynch. Wachovia Bank, $147 billion. Société Générale, this is the French Société Générale. They had to be content with a mere $124 billion U.S. dollars. Dresdner Bank of Germany, up to their necks in derivatives, $123 billion U.S. dollars. Here we now have RBS Citizens. This, I guess, is Royal Bank of Scotland in a different transmogrification. $117 billion. Bayern LB, this is the Bayerische Landesbank, privatized, of course. Always great to privatize these former state banks, right? These are the Landesbanken. Every German federal state had one, and they've basically been privatized and turned into casino gambling, bucket shop operations. Bayern LB, $108 billion of U.S. national credit generation. Dexia Credit, this is Belgium. Dexia gets $105 billion U.S. dollars. Boy, that is quite a catalog. And, of course, we're told today that we can't afford $15 or $20 billion to extend unemployment benefits in the season of Advent and the coming of Christmastide. We're told we can't do that. But, boy, $232 billion was available for Barclays Bank. How about them apples? But let's go on. Let's not stop here. We have to hear more. Let's see now. This we got the enormity of this thing is so tremendous. Let's think about some other companies that got it. General Electric cashed in on the lending. This is, of course, politically motivated. Immelt, one of the big backers of Barack Obama, expecting to cash in, right? That entire stable of left liberal groaners that he's got there, from Ed Schultz to Olbermann to Mademoiselle Maddow and so forth. This is all Immelt's way of saying thank you to Barkey for putting in a good word when the largesse was distributed. General Electric Company cashed in. Verizon Communications cashed in. We don't want to forget UBS AG, Union Bank of Switzerland, Schweizerische Vereinsbank Aktiengesellschaft, $37 billion in October 2008. Barclays, we've already heard about. Let's see, some other worthy recipients of this money. We have Dexia. Oh, of course, they got $23 billion in 2008. Commerzbank. Now, we basically covered the top three, right? The Deutsche Bank, Dresdner Bank, and Commerzbank. Commerzbank AG, Aktiengesellschaft Corporation, $13 billion on commercial paper loans in 2008. Now, some other surprises. Remember the hypocritical, lying, deceptive, duplicitous song and dance coming from the parasites over at Goldman Sachs, that they didn't want government help, they didn't need it, they didn't want to have any part of it. Well, that, of course, was meant, but they would try to get off the hook by saying, well, that applies really only to the TARP, to the Treasury money, the Troubled Asset Relief Fund, the derivatives bailout fund masterminded by Paulson. But remember, the really big money was flowing in the background from the Fed, right? 4, 5, 6 times as much, depending on how you want to measure it. Goldman Sachs borrowed from the Fed 84 times after Lehman Brothers went down. Overnight loans to Goldman Sachs peaked at $18 billion in mid-October. Morgan Stanley, a weaker institution, borrowed 212 times from the Fed. And at the height of the crisis in late 2008, Morgan and its London arm, I guess that might be Morgan Grenfell, borrowed nearly $60 billion. In the case of General Electric, it was $2.3 billion on October 27th, 2008, and a total of $12 billion over the following days. And, of course, there's much more, so come back. We'll be here with World Crisis Radio.